and Pedro Acosta's trying to race Maverick Vinales out of the final corner. Love it.
Simon, you've spotted a couple of tweaks, a couple of updates on the bike of Maverick Vinales potentially from down there in pit lane?
Well, just something, I'll do my best to get an interview with Paulo Bonora and, you know, find out everything that they're doing, or as much as possible we can. But something interesting on Mav's bike right now, just behind him on the back of the seat is a row of sensors that they're obviously recording where and how much he's pushing on the back of the seat. I'm guessing it's something to do with that, but a bunch of sensors behind the rider where his butt would push on as you're accelerating. So I'll try and find out about that and whatever else they're doing soon. Just to give you an idea, it's so cold, most teams are saying it's so, well, not most, some of them are saying to me soft only, and then others are running, like for example Bez has just gone out, Marco Bezzecchi, on his race weekend spec bike. I imagine he's got another one on the other side that I imagine's come from Pramac or factory Ducati. So a 23 spec bike. He's headed out on the 22 spec bike with mediums front and rear, and the mechanics, basically while waiting for him to get on the bike, taking really big care to keep the front tyre covered, you know, to keep that cold air, there's quite a breeze and it's cold, keep that tyre temperature up, because guys, we saw on the weekend and heard from a lot of riders that fell in the race was losing temperature in that hard front tyre as the temperature got cooler.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Simon. We'll look forward to hearing the thoughts of a pretty boss, Paulo Bonora. This is through turn 13. Spectacular corner this around Valencia. Fourth gear, about 175 kilometres an hour into the final corner. Acosta goes. Before you hit the brakes for that second gear last turn, you are approaching 200 kilometres an hour through turn 13, dropping down through 14. Maverick Vinales, then of course, a record-breaking history maker here on Super Saturday in Valencia, the only rider in history that found a 128 lap in qualifying, a 128.931, secured Maverick his first pole position since Assen in 2021, his first pole in 46 Grand Prix, but of course he only got the start from pole in the 13-lap sprint, as Acosta then comes in at the end of his first stint, probably got a humongous smile on his face, a smile as wide as this Ricardo Tormo circuit in Valencia. 8-lap stint from Acosta, a 133.259 was his best as he starts what should be a very interesting first debrief. Probably, wow, that's probably the first word, yeah. Yeah, well, you don't need to be a lip reader, I don't think, there to understand exactly what Pedro Acosta just said. I think it rhymes with duck, but yeah, he was certainly impressed with those first 8 laps on that Gas RC16. Brilliant, brilliant to see him already enjoying life as a MotoGP rider.
He's only going to get quicker, make no mistake about that. Pedro Acosta is going to be a major problem for the rest of MotoGP in 2024 and over the years. Here's our first look at Cal Crutchlow as we look now at Pedro Acosta. Once again, debriefing with Paul Trevathan, his crew chief. Pedro Acosta there, just very considered information that he's giving to the team. But Cal Crutchlow, as we mentioned, on track for the first time today. He's going to have a big role in Yamaha's progress they hope next season, particularly given their concessions that are available to them.
I just love this. Acosta's like talking at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Yeah. If you try to transcribe this conversation, you'd have to be pretty rapid on the keyboard. Look at it, his smile. He looks like a kid on Christmas morning, doesn't he? Love to be hearing his first impressions. He said on Thursday, didn't he, the pre-event press conference, looking forward to the horsepower, looking forward to understanding the stopping force of the carbon brakes, of course, the mind-blowing array of electronic parameters that these MotoGP bikes. Did you? Yeah. I did get a ride for 2024, because after his on Mendes in the garage, having to turn left in the garage will be a strange feeling, because Alex Marquez took priority. There was a bit of banter about that, wasn't there, between the Marquez brothers, because Marquez, for his whole career, sat on the right-hand side of the box, but Alex said, no, not at all, as he comes to sit down in the box then with his new crew chief, Frankie Carcetti, inheriting most of Fabio Di Gianantonio's Gresini crew. And Mark was at pains to say, Simon, Lewis, when he made this deal with Ducati, Gresini is a family team, they're a successful team. He didn't want to come in there and start calling decisions or demanding for crew members to come over. He did not want to upset the apple cart.
One mechanic, we think, has moved across with him.
Xavi Ortiz has come over with him, who has been with Mark, as so many of his crew have been for the majority of his career, not just his MotoGP career, but they were with him in Moto3 and in Moto2 as well. Did we ever think we would see the day where a Ducati was fitted with a number 93? You just thought that it was going to be a career-long success story for Marc Marquez. 11 seasons with Repsol Honda, where he won 6 MotoGP titles, a whole bunch of triple crowns for HRC, 59 wins, 101 podiums, one of the most successful and dominant collaborations in MotoGP history. But Marc Marquez, they're just telling him what all the buttons are. These MotoGP bikes nowadays, they're like PlayStation consoles, aren't they? Like Xbox consoles, as he just gets the instructions here. I'm sure even the crew are nervous as well, Lewis. You know, this is not just any rider that's coming into your pit box. This is one rider who, when he does hang up his leathers, will be talked about amongst the very, very best to ever do it, amongst legendary names. When you think of, you know, your Jeff Dukes, your John Surtees, your Halewoods, your Doohans, your Raineys, your Rossies, Roberts, Sheen, so many great riders, Phil Reed, to name just a few. Apologies if I've missed anybody off, but what a time as well for Gresini Ducati. Can you imagine at the start of this season, it was coming into 2023, if somebody would have said to you on the Tuesday test rather at Valencia, Marc Marquez will be on a Gresini Ducati, with respect that the 4th ranked Ducati team, Marc Marquez will be in that team at the Valencia test, you'd have laughed him out of the paddock.
Yeah, I would have never imagined this year or any year seeing Marc Marquez in anything other than Repsol Honda colours. Gresini Racing actually finished a long way ahead of Repsol Honda, understandably so, in the Teams Championship, given the machinery they had. That is Frankie Carcetti, Marc Marquez's new crew chief. Although, make no mistake, he knows what it takes to engineer a rider to the World Championship. He was Joan Mir's crew chief on his way to the 2020 MotoGP World Championship. And when it was confirmed that he was going to be working with Marc Marquez, we immediately put that question to Marc Marquez, and he said, I trust in Frankie. I trust in the relationship that we're going to build up, and as much as he's got to, of course, learn the different parameters, the different buttons and switches and dials on that Ducati, almost like piloting a 747 rather than riding a motorcycle. It's about building up that relationship, that working relationship, that understanding with Frankie Carcetti that Marc Marquez is going to have to put together too. But you don't think it's going to take too long before Marc Marquez is up to speed on that Gresini Ducati GP23. He's going to be a major headache for the world champion Pecco Bagnaia, who now begins his 2024 campaign.
Pecco Bagnaia was saying that he thinks when Marc Marquez was confirmed as a Gresini rider in Mandalika. Had the pleasure of hosting that first press conference when Marc was confirmed in Valencia, which will be some sort of psychological state of mind. You almost feel like it's written in the stars for Marquez to keep a Michelin soft tyre for right at the back end of this test day, which finishes at 5 p.m. local time here in Valencia, just to fire in at the hot lap, see his name at the top of the leaderboard, and then just make the entire MotoGP field stew for the next couple of months. Knowing that, oh crikey, it's day one and he's already fastest. That was not my prediction, that was the prediction from the world champion who does kick off the defence of his championship. There are all the Gresini mechanics then just getting him ready for this new era. It is a new chapter in the history of the MotoGP World Championship. Marc Marquez on a Ducati. There will be fireworks, there always is when that man's around, no question about it. It's the end of an era, a story with Honda which started right here, back at the end of 2012 when, fresh off winning his Moto2 World Championship, he jumped on the Honda. What a story it was. There were tears here throughout the weekend, some very emotional farewell. What a story it was. There were tears here throughout the weekend, some very emotional farewells. We saw him in the Tissot Sprint Parc Ferme, his third sprint success of the season, where he cracked, and when he looked at his team, he just couldn't keep control of his emotions. They weren't just his team, they were his second family, as everybody, all the journalists, all the media gathered here are eager to see the first glimpse of Marc Marquez start this Ducati story in MotoGP. There is Gigi Dall'Igna.
Right next door.
Going to be a tough prospect how they manage this situation of 8 incredibly fast riders. There is Frankie Carcelli then, just giving some final instructions to Marc Marquez. They'd have worked out a carefully crafted plan here. They'd have sorted out, okay, we're going to go out, you're going to do 5 or 6 laps, then you're going to come in and we'll be running this tyre, we'll be looking at this, just to bed him in gently. Although, does Marc Marquez ever do anything gently?
No.
Out on circuit. Helmets on then, and we are ready to go. The Ducati career of Marc Marquez is about to get underway here at the Ricardo Tormo circuit in Valencia. It's been a different Marc Marquez for much of 2023. A crash-strewn first half of it. The 5 big crashes he had at the Sachsenring in Germany, and his beloved Germany, where he used to just have to turn up and win. We then saw a different approach. The revised tactic from Marquez, much more conservative, much more in safety mode, I guess you could say. But he still feels like there are more race wins, there are more world championships in him. That's the reason why he decided to leave his comfort zone, step out into Ducati, into Gresini Ducati. There he goes, and he's given the mechanics the nod. Off come the tyre warmers. You can almost hear the clicks of the cameras outside this Gresini Ducati box. The moment of truth then here for Marc Marquez as he starts this new journey, this new adventure in the MotoGP World Championship, a journey and an adventure in which he hopes culminates in at least a 9th World Championship, which would coincidentally put him alongside his great foe, his nemesis, 9 times world champion, Italian Valentino Rossi. So for the first time then in MotoGP, Marc Marquez gets to twist the throttle on a factory Ducati. You can hear the fans that have gathered here in the grandstands at the Ricardo Tormo circuit. He leaves pit lane then, and Marc Marquez heads out on circuit for a first lap, a lap that we never thought we'd see. The crowds gave him a great reception as he left at the track. And here we go then, Marc Marquez and Ducati working in tandem to see if he can win that 9th World Championship. A World Championship, which has eluded him since 2019. Of course, it's been such a tough, barren run since he suffered those career-threatening shoulder injuries in the opening Grand Prix, the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez. He's been to dark places that only really Marc knows, both physically and mentally, in the 3 years since then. But this is all about him still showing that he's capable of winning championships, showing everybody, reminding everybody that he's the best rider in the planet. And now, Lewis, no excuses, because he's on the best bike.
I'm still rubbing my eyes a little bit to try and work out, are we actually seeing this? Marc Marquez on board a Ducati. How long is never in motorcycle racing? Well, we just found out. Marc Marquez is officially now a Gresini Ducati rider, and Gigi Dall'Igna will be watching very, very closely to see what Marc Marquez is up to. He's got a couple of more corners to get through before his first official time lap on board a Ducati begins, and there'll be many watching him and his lap times like a hawk through the day.
He's probably taken him, what now, 14 corners to realise. Now I know why Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia have been so darn good, so hard to beat. Yeah, I think many people thought hell would freeze over before we saw Marc Marquez riding a Ducati. Love to be inside that Gresini garage when he comes in for that initial first debrief. It has been a real tough last 2 or 3 years. We've seen him fight back, fight so hard to get himself mentally and physically back to his peak best. He feels like now he's the rider of pre-Jerez in 2020. Well, we will find out, won't we, next season. I wouldn't be surprised, to be perfectly honest, given how good he is, and if he didn't rock up to Qatar and win both the sprint and the Grand Prix. It is a big ask. He's kind of sort of playing down the expectations, but we heard it from Bagnaia and Martin, who were flanked either side of him in that Mandalika press conference where he was talking briefly about this transfer over to Ducati. Both of them believe he'll be a title contender.
You just need to look at previous years. You need to look at Enea Bastianini in 2022 for Gresini, challenged for the World Championship on a year-old bike. Marco Bezzecchi challenged for the MotoGP title for much of this year on a year-old bike. Marco's just making sure he stays out of the way of Raul Fernandez there on board the Aprilia. So Marc Marquez will fully expect to challenge for the World Championship this season. From Ducati's point of view, how do you improve on near perfection? Their motorcycle is so good. It's very difficult to improve upon it for the next season. So Marc Marquez is jumping on a GP23 that is nigh on the best motorcycle that's ever been put on a MotoGP circuit. And there'll be stages in the early parts of next season as Marc Marquez's first lap time on that Ducati is a 1:35.6. That the year-old bike will be perhaps more figured out and more competitive than the new bike, as we saw in the early parts of this season with Bezzecchi and, of course, Bastianini at the beginning of last year. So Marc Marquez is on a motorcycle that is well and truly figured out. He's just got to now figure it out himself.
Yeah, he's just pushing a few buttons in. Looking down at the dashboard, there's obviously so many intricate systems you have to learn when you switch manufacturers as well. Probably by the end of the day, though, I could just imagine Marc sat at the back of the Gresini garage like a Bond villain, sort of stroking a cat in his seat and just spinning around, you know, because we know that there are going to be fireworks at some stage next season. This, of course, is a factory Honda ride. I mean, a guesstimate he was making anything between 10 and 50 million euros, and that might actually be underplaying it. He's taken a huge pay cut, but he's been at pains to say this has got nothing to do with money. This is just all about winning, and perhaps more importantly, enjoying himself as well, because the last 2 or 3 years have taken so much out of him, both the brain and the body. Of course, it's great for MotoGP. You know, the more fast and competitive riders we have at the front, then the better the spectacle it's going to be. We've already had some spectacle in 2023. 17 riders led laps, 15 riders finished on the podium, on the Grand Prix podium, 13 riders finished on the sprint podium, and 15 riders qualified in the front row. And some people have the cheek to say MotoGP was boring this year. 17 riders leading laps, 15 finishing on a Grand Prix podium. It was certainly wide open at times. It was dominated clearly by Ducati. We've got the mouth-watering prospect. Hopefully, everything crossed here in the commentary box with the new concessions, the leg-ups that Honda and Yamaha have got next year, that they can also come back to the party, because We've seen certainly over the second half of the season, Lewis, Fabio Quartararo on what is not the most competitive M1 that's ever rolled out of the factory back in Iwata, at times has shown his class. When he's been the underdog, he's still just got his head down, fought like a lion, and probably put that Yamaha in places that it didn't really deserve to be.
Now, Quartararo was sensational for much of this year. So too was Marc Marquez. Davide Tardozzi, as keen as the rest of us to watch what Marc Marquez is up to as he cuts his first laps on this Gresini Ducati. Simon Crayfire is in pit lane for us and can give us a more detailed description of the Ducati that Marc Marquez is on. Simon, down to you.
Yes, it's a little noisy because something of interest, it's the first time I've seen a 24 spec Ducati head out on track, which is in the hands of Enea Bastianini. No one else has tried one yet, you know, Pramac or factory Ducati riders. So the specker bike that Marc Marquez is on is, like we all know, the 23 spec gets passed on from Pramac and the Ducati factory boxes to the satellite teams, and so he's on one of those. But just to let you know a little bit more, he's setting-wise, it really makes sense. It's in the most popular setting I see, in the middle everywhere, you know, the middle of the swing arm, the middle of the steering head. He's got the the long Öhlins forks, which makes sense. You know, not a lot of the Ducati riders run them, but DG did. So I imagine they're out of his bike, you know, straight in. For example, he has not got the start device, you know, the latest Ducati one that was on the 23 factory bikes, but they are still only in the Ducati factory and Pramac box.
Thanks very much for those updates, Simon. Always a beady eye down in pit lane. Marquez fastest on a Ducati. Hold your breath. It's Alex Marquez. Yeah, 1:30.369 on his last lap. Actually, has just put Alex Marquez, younger sibling, top of the timesheets. That's not a bad speed actually from Alex. Only done 5 laps in the chilly conditions here this morning in Valencia. This is lap number 5. Marquez. Lap 5 completed for Mark, 1:32.738. Of course, as you mentioned, Pecco, Marc Marquez saying he's looking forward to the opportunity to really pour over in detail the data of Martin and Bagnaia, but you flip that coin, and I'm sure those two are going to be very eager over the course of next season as well to see what Marc can bring to the Ducati, or how his riding style maybe can change the process or the dynamics of how you can get the best performance out of those Ducatis. On board then with the 93 up to turn 6. This is just what, second gear, about 100 kilometers an hour, and you attack hard then now through what's turn 7. It's more of a real fast kick up to 5th gear, approaching 250 kilometers an hour, then coming now through this very tricky right hand. They've got to be careful here on the right hand side of that Michelin tyre. This is where Brad Binder and Jack Miller threw away the chance of a quick check. You can see on the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screens, that's where we're at in terms of the times. But it's Alex Marquez that leads Maverick Vinales, Jorge Martin, Raul and Augusto Fernandez, and Fabio Quartararo, the top 6, the early 6 that have found sub 1:31 laps this morning in what are very chilly, breezy conditions here. Let's hope some of that cloud gets blown away and we get a bit of sunshine. I think I did read somewhere. Already. Top 10 already from Marc Marquez. I think I did read somewhere where we are going to get ambient temperature creep over 20 degrees. So 1:31.525 from Marc Marquez on his 6th lap of the session. Immediately fires him up inside the top 10.
So already in the first sector of this current lap, it's taken Marc Marquez 7 laps, or 6.25 laps, to set a red first sector. You're going to see a few of those.
Is he having a laugh? This is already, I mean, okay, yeah, the pace is a long, long, long way off where we saw here at the weekend. Maverick Vinales at a 1:28.931 to set pole position. The fastest lap of Sunday's Grand Prix was a 1:30.145 from Brad Binder. Alex Marquez at the top of the time she's only a couple of tenths away from that. But Marc Marquez, I think, already enjoying life on the Ducati.
He will be grinning like a Cheshire cat under that crash helmet right now. So this is why they were dominating over the last few years, he'll be saying, under that crash helmet. We've got, of course, a Marquez pairing within the Gresini Ducati box. We might have a Marquez 1-2 in just a moment. So Marc Marquez has been on that Gresini Ducati for, what, all of 10 minutes now. And he crosses the line to set a 1:30.683, and he's into the top 3.
Is it already time to start queuing up the Jaws music for 2024 as he flicks into the first corner? I just wonder whether this might be the end of his first run, whether the instructions were, OK, let's just go out. 7 laps to kick off your Ducati career. Let's just take it steady. Well, we said, didn't we, before he went out, Marc Marquez does not do steady or does not do gently. A 1:30.683 is his opening salvo as a Ducati rider. Puts him immediately up into P3. That's the head of Maverick Vinales and Jorge Martin. Quick check on the reigning world champion, Pecco Bagnaia, who did a short opening lap stint of 7 laps to begin the defence as his reign now as a double MotoGP world champion. Bagnaia 1:31.505. Like a duck to water.
Did we expect anything else?
Hasn't taken him too long to find his groove, find his mojo on that GP23. As Simon said, Ducati just sending him out there on their sort of standard base setting. Plenty more to come in 2024 then from Marc Marquez. The early signs, I think it's fair to say,
here he comes.
Rather positive.
Yeah, he'll certainly settle for that. And that was the first run of what will be many, of course, for Marc Marquez. Quick update on Pedro Acosta, incidentally. He has improved. He's down to a 1:32.258 now, the Moto2 world champion. He's now put in 15 laps of this Valencia circuit, and he is out on track at the moment. If Pedro Acosta is anywhere around there, 1.5 to 2 seconds off by the end of the day, I think he'll be very happy with his day's work.
This man's going to be very happy. Would love to have the proper boom mic inside this Gresini garage right now. As Marc Marquez plonks back into his seat. 7 laps, 7 fast laps, 8 in that session, the fastest of which was at 1:30.683. Just wondering the pre-sort of test briefings whether Frankie Carcelli was going. We'll be happy with a mid-1:30 at the end of the day. First run straight into the mid-1:30s. Look at his face, look at his face. That face
that tells you everything.
The story. The expression, the beaming smile, the nod of the head, the raise of the eyebrows. I think it's fair to say that we have a very happy 93, having already got himself inside the top 3 on that Ducati. That was brilliant. Great to see our cameras inside that Gresini garage. Look at this. This is brilliant. You absolutely love that. I think that's what you call the seal of approval. Already loving life on the Ducati and probably already thinking, I've made the right decision. Yeah. I've called this one absolutely bang on the money. Let's go down to pit lane though. What a season that has been for the factory Ducati team, holding on to the World Championship thanks to Pecco Bagnaia's brilliance throughout this season and his victory here on Sunday in Valencia. Let's get some thoughts from the boss, Davide Tardozzi, who joined Simon. I'm sure has been keeping a very close eye on those early laps as well from Marc Marquez. Down to you guys.
Yes, Davide, first time I've got to talk to you since winning the championship again with Pecco. I'd love a bit of a summary of Sunday for us.
Sunday was an incredible day for us. Pecco gave us an incredible title. I think that in this moment we need to be concentrate on 2024 because as you can it will be very tough to win the 3rd title in a row. So we are already focused on that. Today it will be very important to work on the new bike and to give to the engineer the right feedback. The times today are absolutely not our target. We will leave this to somebody else, but I think that the feedback that Pecco will give, it will be very important for the winter work. And as Pecco makes a huge difference
Sorry, David, we've just let Jorge Martin head out there. What were you saying?
No, I was saying that Pecco makes a good job in 2022 and in 2023 with his feedback and let the bike race a lot. I think that he will do the same on 2024, so let's work for the next championship.
David, do you mind me asking, looking at the two bikes, there's not a big difference to see. Can you give us the areas that you're working on with the 24 bike?
You can see two bikes that are absolutely identical outside.
I'm glad I'm not missing something, but can you tell us, is it electronics or suspension stuff that we can't see? Engine, okay. Davide, thank you. But before I let you go, what was it like seeing Marc Marquez have his first ride on one of your machines? Davide, you were kind enough to let me try it mid-22, and it is the most amazing motorcycle experience I've ever had. In every area, it's the most beautiful machine I've experienced. I imagine what he's thinking. What were you thinking when he was riding it?
He is impressive. He already did something that will show during the year. I think that for sure Marc will be one of the top three in the end of the year, for sure. Or one of the two.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Davide Tardozzi. Davide Tardozzi is one of the sort of most experienced, wisest old heads in this MotoGP paddock. There's not a lot that Davide hasn't seen throughout his career in both World Superbikes and in MotoGP, but you heard him there. He just said that was impressive. Already his eye has been caught by Marc Marquez's opening stint on the Ducati, and he just said there he fully expects Marc to be inside the top three in the World Championship next season. What a season we have in prospect next year. It all gets underway under the night lights in Qatar for the sprint on March the 9th. The longest ever season in MotoGP history, over 22 laps. Special year, as you mentioned as well, our 75th anniversary. And already, you kind of feel, coming into this final weekend, I was obviously looking forward to the championship, looking forward to the test, but I'm not going to lie, I was looking forward to a long winter break as well. but already I'm thinking, wish that winter break was a little bit shorter after what we've already seen already here on this Tuesday morning, a chilly Tuesday morning here in Valencia. Lewis, it just feels already like that was a bit of a line drawn in the sand, just a little bit of an early marker already from 93.
Well, you kind of think, knowing Marc Marquez the way we do, he is such a ruthless competitor. He is a born winner. Anytime he goes out onto a racetrack, surely he's going to want to go out there and try and send a message to his rivals, his competition, to let them know that, hey, next season, I'm going to be a major, major thorn in your side. And, well, are we surprised? Probably not, but still impressed by what Marc Marquez has done already on his first run on the Ducati. When he goes back out on track, if you don't see it on screen, we will inform you of that when Marc returns to the racetrack. He's debriefing at the moment with his crew chief, Frankie Carcetti, in the Gresini Ducati box. Our focus now on Fabio Quartararo. Of course, another rider, former world champion on Japanese machinery, looking to try and fight the good fight in 2023, and Quartararo certainly rode above himself and above the motorcycle, you have to say, in 2023. Although it was a winless 23 season for the factory Yamaha team, Fabio Quartararo in the latter part of the season especially was incredible. His ride in India when he was giving Jorge Martin a hard time on the final lap in that battle for second place. A race in Indonesia that Fabio Quartararo could quite easily have won had he been able to overtake on that Yamaha, which is notoriously difficult to overtake with, given its various strengths up against all of those V4s. And Fabio Quartararo, was already thinking long-term, thinking ahead to this Valencia test earlier on in the weekend, because Fabio Quartararo woke up on Sunday morning here in Valencia with a horrendous fever, a very high temperature. Somehow Quartararo took part in the full 27-lap Valencia Grand Prix and finished in 11th place. But Lynn Jarvis spoke to Simon Cratifor on the grid before the Valencia Grand Prix began, and they said, we told Fabio, hey, Tuesday is more important to us. Yes, we want you to try and give us the best possible result here in the final race of the season, but it is a big, big test for us on Tuesday in Valencia as we try to turn the table next season. So we want Fabio at full fitness. We've already seen the smile of Marc Marquez. There is the smile of Pedro Acosta after his first taste of MotoGP machinery.
I think it's fair to say he quite enjoyed it. Love at first sight for Pedro Acosta on the gas gas. I mean, I think there he's just saying, as soon as I started coming out of that final corner, that second gear, 80 kilometres an hour, turn 14, then he started winding up through the gearbox, through third, fourth, fifth and sixth. You're up to, what, around 335 kilometres an hour. Let's have a look at Acosta's. He's on a 328.9 through the speed trap here in Valencia, which, without any question, is the fastest he's ever gone on a motorcycle previously. If he thinks that's fun, wait till he gets to places like Mugello, Qatar and Barcelona, where the MotoGP bikes are doing in excess of 350 kilometres an hour. As Pecco Bagnaia, it's a bit of concern here for the newly crowned world champion, having a proper glare down at his left boot there, isn't he? He's obviously felt something maybe as he went into that first corner. A first corner where on Sunday he had no idea just how close he came to disaster. Very early on was it lap 3 as Aleix Espargaro's had a run off on the factory Aprilia. Lap 3 of that title decider here. Jorge Martin, a mistake we've seen so often. Well, Bagnaia made the very same mistake, didn't he? In Qatar, we're going to go see Aleix Espargaro run off here into the first corner. Right here in the braking zone on Sunday was where Martin was millimetres away from taking himself and Bagnaia out of their final round showdown. A mistake that we're getting familiar seeing in MotoGP. As we mentioned, Bagnaia had it with Digia in Qatar. When you're in the slipstream and with the aero and with the dirty, turbulent air, you just get sucked in. And you're pretty much powerless. You're almost a passenger on the bike. Right here then was where Bagnaia had his big scare. Martin did avoid him. Somewhat aggressively came back out on the circuit as well, did he, through that first corner with Martin. But then we know what followed the course. A couple of laps later, Martin crashing out in that incident with Marc Marquez, which sadly ended his and Prima Pramac hopes of a historic first independent team world championship win.
Oh, Martin's gone
that's
down.
Martin, Jorge Martin, that's 10. That's turn 10. That's cold tyre. That's frustration from Jorge Martin because he's absolutely smacking the gravel trap there. The gravel got a proper couple of right hooks. This is it. This is your classic cool, chilly morning Valencia crash. Wasn't even braking there, was it? As soon as he tipped it in, we saw Quartararo, the Gian Antonio, have crashes there on Saturday morning in FP2. That's where Miller, as the temperature was dropping here on Sunday afternoon, a late start for the Grand Prix, 3 p.m. Local time. Of course, being late November, Pecco Bagnaia himself said he could actually feel physically the cold, and he was worried about the temperature of his hard front tyre. Well, without any question, that is what has caught out Martin. That's just pushing that a little bit too hard, being a little bit too aggressive on the front. Cold part of the track, cold tyre, and down he goes. Good news is he's A-OK and walking away with a little bit of anger and frustration inside, though.
Yeah, last time we saw Jorge Martin striding away from a crash, there were tears behind the crash helmet of the number 89. Anger this time, and Simon, you can tell us in particular why Jorge will be particularly angry with that one.
Because it's his first run out on the 24 bike, you know, so he's going to lose a bit of time here on it and hopefully not lose it, you know. So, yeah, I agree with you, cold front tyre. Guys, just to explain why I think Pecco looks down at his boot. For example, just from experience, if your boot slips off or you lose a bit of, you know, unexpected loss of grip rear-wise, especially boot slipping off the foot peg is a warning that experienced riders never ignore because it's the first sign of a leak an oil leak, you know, it gets your feet first and then moves on to the rear tyre, you know, so you never ignore a little warning like that. He was double checking, there was no oil on his boots, nothing there, so carry on.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Simon. Yes, indeed, he is carrying on as Bagnaia now up towards turn 12. He'll now flick it left and start the sweep through 13. Maximum speed here, about 200 kilometres an hour. Of course, always special memories in Valencia of the great shots back in the day of Nicky Hayden, power sliding. That's at turn 13. Okay, I think so Bagnaia going through the first corner. I think Jack Appleyard has been speaking with a couple of guys down in Mark's crew, so can we hear from what's been going on there down in pit lane, guys?
Simon, down to you.
Yeah, it's actually Jack that's grabbed the microphone. We're alongside each other anyway. We're working in tandem throughout the day. And yeah, nobody from Gresini Ducati is able to speak publicly today, but I was able to just grab someone and get a quiet word just to get an understanding of what Mark's first thoughts are, having ridden the Ducati. Unsurprisingly, the first words that they said, Mark is very happy. We can see that by the fact that he had a big smile on his face. He felt comfortable. His only area of concern at the moment is under braking, particularly at entry. He feels that the balance is just slightly off at the moment. The front end's pushing a little bit, which means that they need to just readjust that to get him 100% comfortable. But the big takeaway, Marc Marquez, unsurprisingly, very happy with his Ducati debut.
Yeah, thanks ever so much for that, Jack. A shocking start from Marquez, a 1:30.683. Jorge Martin then, unfortunately, a bit of damage to a nice, or what was now, an ex shiny new GP24, because he's launched it into the gravel trap. Fast crash that one when you go through turn 10. You come through 9, third gear, about 150 kilometres an hour, and then you're building up speed there now to around 180 through this third gear, turn 10. He tipped it in, but did not come out the other side of it, did he? He had just set the fastest time of the day as well at Martin with a 1:30.325. Properly angry with himself, isn't he? Really, really frustrated with that one. Best possible news for Jorge is that he's been able to quickly get back on his feet, but just starting the inquest on that one. It was a few late season DNFs which really hampered his hopes of defeating Bagnaia in this year's World Championship. When you look at the latter part of the season, this man on your screens now, the 26-year-old Italian Pecco Bagnaia, although Valencia on Sunday was only his second Grand Prix win the last 9, his brilliant ride from 13th to first in Mandalika being the other one. He's had a real stranglehold over Martin over the last Sundays. In fact, at the end of the season, he scored 67 points more on Sundays than Jorge Martin. 7 podiums in a row. His best run in MotoGP to close out the season, to close out the championship. 7 successive podiums, the best run in MotoGP since Marc Marquez in 2019, the first Italian to do it since Valentino Rossi 8 years ago, back in 2015. Unfortunately for Martin, while Bagnaia was getting podiums for fun late on, 7 in a spin, Martin only had 2 podiums on Sundays in the last 7. It was really his sprint form that was propping him up late on. And the most recent of those DNFs, the tangle with Marc Marquez at turn 4 on Sunday, made it was good night Vienna for his title aspirations.
So Pecco Bagnaia now up into 3rd place. It's a Ducati 1, 2, 3. 4 Ducatis in the top 5, as we have to keep reminding ourselves and getting used to the idea that Marc Marquez is on one of them in 5th place. Pecco Bagnaia really did use his head, didn't he, in the latter stage of this season, as the rider in that pit box on that motorcycle just chased him down in the closing stages of this season. Bagnaia, though, despite all that pressure and despite some sprint struggles, was able to get the better of Jorge Martin, particularly on Sundays. It was the Sunday consistency from Pecco Bagnaia that really was the bedrock of his title success. As we take another look at Jorge Martin's crash down at turn 10. We had 20 full-length Grand Prix, 19 of which were on a Sunday, 1 on a Saturday, of course, in Australia. Pecco Bagnaia was on the podium in 75% of them. 15 podiums out of 20, including those 7 wins. Martin was our sprint king of 2023, but in the end, the Sundays were what swung it Bagnaya's way.
Yeah, this man just had unrivaled consistency, which is so fundamentally important over such a long season, especially with the addition, the exciting new era of the Tissot Sprint in 2023. 28th podium of the season here on Sunday, which was just unmatched by anybody. Argentina, of course, when he blundered a second place in the wet conditions behind Marco Bezzecchi at Termas Hondo in round 2. That was the only Grand Prix weekend of the season down in South America where Bagnaia did not find himself on the podium in at least one of the sprint or the Grand Prix. He comes back to the gold throne. That's the man who they're all chasing once again in 2024. I wonder what Martin and Bagnaia thought when they looked up at the timing screens at the end of Marc Marquez's first. That little run out going, oh crikey. It's only taken the dude 7 laps and he's already flying around this Valencia circuit. Great times at the moment for Pecco Bagnaia. I'm sure he's got a lot of World Championship winning engagements to fulfil over the course of the next couple of months, although I guess his fiancée Demizia will be much happy, because in a recent MotoGP social, wasn't it in Qatar, where we asked him what he would do if he was winner of the MotoGP World Championship this year. Well, he said it won't be a lot more relaxed and it will give him more breathing space, a bit more time perhaps to better plan his wedding. He ties the knot next summer, doesn't he? Next July. With his bride-to-be, Demizia. So I'm sure she'll be holding him to that one.
Certainly will be. I mean, I think it was last winter, wasn't it, where they actually did officially get engaged. Pecco Bagnaia and his good lady Demizia, who we saw throughout the last stage of this season. She lives every lap with Pecco Bagnaia. She looked bordering on terrified for much of the final weekend of the season in Valencia. As the tension built up, the rider or the person you felt best dealt with that tension was actually Bagnaia himself, as there was all sorts of nerves within his team and within his family. Bagnaia just kept his head, just kept everything under control, won the World Championship from pole position with a victory.
Yeah, no better way to be crowned world champion. He started the season in sensational fashion. The double win in Portimao was the perfect way to kickstart the defence of his World Championship. Started the season on the top step of the podium, finished it on the top step of the podium and on top of the world. He's going to take some shifting as well from that perch, is Pecco Bagnaia, because he said at this very Grand Prix in Valencia, when he just won his first world title, just won his first world title here 12 months ago, he said, that's not it. Hungry for more. He wants more success. He said, you can only really be considered a true great, a proper legend in MotoGP when you are a multiple world champion. When you look at the previous riders in history that have won back-to-back Premier Class titles, Jeff Duke, John Surtees, Mike Aylward, Giacomo Agostini, Phil Reed, Barry Sheen, Kenny Roberts, Eddie Lawson, Wayne Rainey, Mick Doohan, Valentino Rossi and Marc Marquez. It shows just how good Pecco Bagnaia has been over the last couple of years that we now rightly mention him in the same breath as some of the proper legends in Grand Prix history. But one wasn't enough. I'm sure 2 isn't enough, Lewis, as well. He wants more. He said that's his target, to be a multiple world champion. But as we mentioned, he'll be a tough obstacle to shift from the top of the championship next year.
So they're given that whole Ducati team is built around Bagnaia. He's done such a good job of rallying that team behind him and making himself the focal point. He's earned that position, no mistake about that. Was a double world champion, and he will indeed take some stopping next year. Marco Bezzecchi, one of the riders looking to stop him. Simon Crowfar from Pit Lane informing us this is the second run for Marco Bezzecchi on the 2023 Spec Ducati. Of course, within the VR46 team, both Bezzecchi and Fabio Di Gianantonio next season will have the 2023 bikes, as will Marc Marquez and Alex Marquez in the Gresini squad. And one person who might not have liked seeing that smile of Marc Marquez in the Gresini box would have been Marco Bezzecchi, because it's fair to say after Sunday that they're not the best of friends.
Yeah, if there was a welcome party hosted by Ducati for Marc Marquez, declining the invitation certainly was Marco Bezzecchi. I think it's fair to say it was Ballistic Bears here on Sunday a couple of days ago. Gotta love a guy, though, that comes to his final media scrum of the season already holding a beer. He was already getting through...
Wasn't the last one he had, let me tell you.
It certainly wasn't. But yes, he's certainly not leaving anybody in any doubt about his thoughts on the early incident with Marc Marquez, saying, well, he decided to end my race after 3 corners. These are the words of Marc Marquez. It was a very, very dirty move. And he's the dirtiest rider. Yeah, these are Marco's words. He was very, very angry. He was very upset that there was no sanction coming there for Marc Marquez. I think they did meet each other in a paddock a little bit later on, where they sort of, guess what, had completely different perspectives on what happened. But I think Bez just wanted to make it clear how frustrated he was with Marc. When Marc was asked about it, he just could not really be any more dismissive of Bezzecchi's complaints and criticism. He just said, I don't want to waste too much time about this rider. Didn't even name it. So clearly, no love lost right now between Marco Bezzecchi and Marc Marquez. You can understand Bezzecchi's frustration. It was a pretty tough move that Marc threw on him, going through that turn 3 here on Sunday. But still, so much to be proud of for Bezzecchi and for Mini Off-1-6, just their second season together in MotoGP. And when you talk about big improvers in the World Championship this year, Marco Bezzecchi was 14th in the standings at the end of his rookie season and was a title contender and leapt up to 3rd place. So that was some massive leap forward from Bezzecchi.
3 wins, 7 podiums, 3 pole positions as well, and a sprint win in Assen as well for Marco Bezzecchi. One of the stars of the season, on and off track. He is such an entertainer, although as you already pointed out, he certainly didn't win many friends in the 93 camp on Sunday. Marc Marquez's former team. Just glancing at the notes that we put together for this test, I had a quote from Marc Marquez written down that he said when he joined Rossini, and he said this on Sunday as well. He says, it's a very risky challenge, I need to smile. Well, we've already seen that smile of Marc Marquez inside a couple of hours.
Yeah, a smile that won't be locked on his face for the whole winter. He hasn't yet ventured back out on circuit for his 2nd run. Trust us if you're watching at home. We've got cameras camped everywhere. So as soon as the shots come up for Marc Marquez, Bezzecchi then having a run out on the motorcycle that he will run next year, the Ducati GP23. Was that the last corner or the first?
Down at turn 1, I think. Yeah. Well, he's just in the final section, so yeah, he's through the final corner. So Bezzecchi will have lost it, you'd imagine, coming through turn 13 as you're breaking on an angle into 14. Bezzecchi running on through the gravel track. Bezzecchi currently in 17th place on a 1:31.7. As mentioned, not changing teams, Bezzecchi, but is of course changing machinery from the GP22 onto the GP23.
Yeah, the trophy covered a little bit bare towards the back end of the season for the 25-year-old Italian. Didn't score a podium in Grand Prix since that brilliant dominant victory. First unforgettable visit to the Bud International Circuit in India. No sprint win in 11 since Assen, certainly not helped by the training accident. Never a good time to get any kind of injury, but coming right before our 2 overseas triple headers for Marco Bezzecchi really did sort of put a nail in the coffin of his title aspirations, fracturing his right collarbone in a training accident at the VR46 training range in Tavulia. Somehow, though, took the flight, didn't he, late on, made a last-minute 11th hour decision to fly to Jakarta. Only arrived at the circuit just before free practice 1 on Friday.
Which he nearly topped when he had a high-speed crash at turn 10 right at the end of that session, didn't he?
And then he fought for the podium in the sprint and in the Grand Prix, which is astonishing. But clearly, Lewis, over the latter stage of the season, we repeatedly heard from Marco. I mean, there's no denying he was still very fast, he was still competitive, but it was the pain, the discomfort from that shoulder, which was clearly a bit of a speed limiting handicap. We'll pick it up again with Marco Bezzecchi very, very quickly, because a man who's done so much sterling work behind the scenes to put KTM into a position where they should be title contenders in 2023. And boy, did he provide us with some spectacular action on 2 memorable wildcards in his home Grand Prix in Jerez, and when he fought for the podium in 2 wildcards, the sprint and the Grand Prix in Misano. Always great to hear from a rider who's scored over 150 podiums in his Grand Prix career. Such a great rider, and now doing so much great work behind the scenes for KTM. It's none other than Danny Pedrosa, who joins Jack down in pit lane.
Yeah, he does indeed. Great to get the opportunity to chat away with Danny, who, of course, I'm sure has had a taste of this 2024 KTM. So what can Jack and Brad expect from it today?
Well, here we are. I mean, it's only one day, so we have to be really careful with the steps we do. And I think today we don't have anything big, so it's only details here and there. Some parts will go to Jack and some other parts will go to Brad, so that we can test everything before the winter break, and then I continue next week still testing to sum up all the ideas for next year.
In terms of 2024, with the new rules introduced yesterday, looks like you're going to be potentially a little bit busier than you have been in years previous. More test tyres, more wild cards. Are you looking forward to a hectic 2024?
I guess all the viewers and all the fans that are listening, they maybe are willing me to do many more wildcards, but at the moment we don't have the plan yet, and also we will have Paul in the team, so I hope we can spread some of the wildcards at least, because it's quite a big job to prepare the wildcards. But obviously it was a good success this year, and I think all the fans enjoyed.
The fans enjoyed, we in the media enjoyed. It looked like